Last summer, England won the Euros at Wembley, the first international tournament the Lionesses had ever won. Now, they're heading to Australia for the World Cup, just 1 year later. So, are they favourites to win it? Well, let's take a look at the team that started the final. This was also actually the 11 that started every single game across the tournament, all 6 games up to Wembley. Sarina Wiegman really likes to play the same players. We saw it when she was managing the Netherlands. It's been the same with England. And there are a couple of key things she looked to do with this starting 11. First up, Leah Williamson, captain for the tournament. She'd actually played her in midfield for a large part of the run-up to the tournament, but sort of on the eve of it, she decided she was going to pair her up with Millie Bright in defence. But the key thing was Williamson was still going to step forward and dovetail with Kira Walsh in terms of England's build-up play. Another key aspect of how England wanted to play during this tournament was using their 2 wingers, Beth Mead and Lauren Hemp. Now, Beth Mead finished as the tournament's top scorer. She was voted best player of the tournament. She went on to finish second in the Ballon d'Or voting. It was a massive tournament for her. And what Mead likes to do is get into the box. And she was actually supporting Ellen White, who played a role less of goal scorer and more of presser, with Mead sort of acting then as the decoy runner. That was a bit different from what Lauren Hemp wanted to do. Hemp is a player who likes to take players on. She can go round the outside and bring crosses in, but she can also cut inside too. And what that allowed Wiegman to do throughout games was to choose to switch Beth Mead and Lauren Hemp. So if an opposition had a weaker fullback on one side, you'd often see Beth Mead moving over to try and provide a goal threat on that side, with Hemp then attacking the opposite one. Now, one of the most noticeable things that Wiegman liked to do throughout the tournament was to use her super subs. Every game, without fail, after around the hour mark, Wiegman made 3 key changes. First off went Ellen White. On came Alessia Russo, a bit more of a different striker, not as high intensity or aggressive as White all the time, someone who was willing to actually drop and make more space for different players. So Russo came on. Fran Kirby, who was playing at the 10, she also went off. And on came Ella Toone, Alessia Russo's teammate at Manchester United at the time. Those two have a great relationship. Third change, off went Beth Mead. And in came Chloe Kelly. Now, Chloe Kelly actually has more of a profile that's similar to Lauren Hemp than Mead in terms of how, again, she wants to take players on. Perfect for playing against tired legs. These 3 subs were absolutely crucial for England's progress throughout the tournament, not least in the final where Ella Toone scored the first goal and Chloe Kelly got the winner in extra time. So far, so good. On the face of it, England could just roll through to the World Cup with this team. Well, it's not that simple. So, firstly, after the tournament finished, Ellen White announced she was retiring, leaving England with a space vacated in that number 9 position. Now, that's obviously something that England have known about all year. Alessia Russo has been the obvious candidate, given that she played that super sub role during the tournament, but Rachel Daly has thrown a little bit of a spanner in the works. So Daly played at left back during all of the Euros, but she actually has always played as a striker. She played as a striker for the Houston Dash, moved over to Aston Villa off the back of the Euros, and as a striker at Villa, scored 22 goals and won the WSL Golden Boot. That obviously leaves a space at left back, which we'll come on to in a minute. Now, the next problem England faced was in November against Manchester United, Beth Mead tore her ACL, ruling her out almost immediately of the World Cup. So again, in some ways, feels like there's an obvious replacement. Chloe Kelly played that role as the super sub. But another option that England have found is Lauren James. Now, James wasn't part of the Euros squad. She had moved to Chelsea ahead of the start of that season, but had barely played at all because of injury. But this year has been a breakout year for her, and she's got a really good shot, I think, of making the starting 11 when England open the World Cup against Haiti. The next player to fall out of the starting 11 was Fran Kirby, who also injured her knee, lots of knee injuries, against West Ham in February. But once again, we should have a ready-made option here in Ella Toone. Equally though, Lauren James can and has played as a 10, so something else to think about there. And the final player who'll be missing when England open the World Cup is Leah Williamson, England's captain. So we know Millie Bright has already been made captain, but there are a couple of options here that England might have in terms of filling the space that Leah Williamson is leaving. First up, we've got Alex Greenwood. Greenwood is left-footed. She can play as the left-sided centre-back or at left-back, and obviously that opens up different passing lanes in terms of the build-up. Jess Carter would be another option in that position. Carter can play all across the back line and is a very solid defensive option. Not a particularly creative player, but someone who you'll know will get the job done. Equally, Greenwood could play at left back and Carter could pair up with teammate Millie Bright in the centre-back roles. So what will Wiegman do? Well, I think that Alex Greenwood makes sense as the centre-back option. I think what she offers in possession gives her the ability to try and replace the qualities Leah Williamson had in that role during the Euros. Jess Carter, equally, will be a good defensive option at left-back, which will allow Lucy Bronze to go forward and play support for whoever is on the right wing, enabling England to come across into a back three like this, because Lucy Bronze, not as fast as she used to be. As we look further up the pitch then, I think there are a couple of options here. Probably the key one that determines how everyone else will play will be this decision between Alessia Russo and Rachel Daly. There is technically a third option here in Beth England, who again has shown plenty of times that she can score a lot of goals, but I think realistically, Wiegman just clearly, for whatever reason, doesn't really fancy her. My hunch is that she'll go with Rachel Daly. I think Alessia Russo is a very talented striker, but ultimately, in terms of form at the moment, it's hard to look past Daly and her goal scoring. Not to mention, this allows Alessia Russo to take up that same super sub role that we saw her play so well at the Euros. Now with Daly as the starting striker, this is an interesting conundrum for who then plays at the 10. So the attraction of Ella Toone, as well as being a very talented player, is her existing relationship with Alessia Russo. Toone and Russo are two players who will happily swap each other's spots and try and move defenders out of position by doing that. Now, with Daly starting, she's someone who's going to a lot more look to occupy the back line and feed off crosses from Hemp and whoever plays on the right. I think if that's the case, you want Chloe Kelly playing on the right wing. Kelly and Hemp both play together at Manchester City with Bunny Shaw, who thrives off those same balls into the box that Rachel Daly will be looking for throughout the tournament. So that still leaves us trying to figure out who goes in our number 10 position. I think ultimately, Lauren James might get the nod. We've seen that Sarina Wiegman loves playing Lauren James. She's used her non-stop throughout this year. And with Kelly operating in that right wing spot, it feels like a no-brainer that to get her in the team, you play her as the 10. What James also offers in terms of her on-ball ability is she's someone who likes to drop into deeper areas and run with the ball. This frees up space for Georgia Stanway, who can also play as a 10 but has been used as an 8 predominantly by England, for her to be making those runs into the penalty area that maybe Ella Toone would be doing if she was on the pitch. That frees up a lot more space in this midfield, which also suits Kira Walsh, who we've seen multiple times has the ability to thread passes out here or through here, as we saw in the Euros final. So that's where I think England will end up when they start the World Cup. I think we'll still see the same approach to super subs. Obviously, Alessia Russo will probably come in for Rachel Daly. Equally, Ella Toone potentially come in for Lauren James, or Chloe Kelly, allowing James to play at the right wing spot. And I think maybe a wildcard super sub we might see is Niamh Charles, coming in for Jess Carter. Charles actually started as a winger. She offers a lot more going forward than Carter. Maybe not as much defensive stability, but potentially later on in the game when you're chasing a goal, that will be the risk worth taking. So clearly this isn't the team England won the Euros with, and maybe for that reason, we shouldn't see them as favourites. But that being said, they're still a very talented set of players, and there's no real reason to think that if they can gel early on in the tournament and get some momentum going, we could still see them playing in that final at the end of the summer.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.